Hello and welcome. This week we're going to be looking at something that I'm quite excited about, something that I always wanted as a kid. It's a Scalextric. So I think as I was growing up there were two presents that I wanted Christmas. One was Scalextric and the other one was Mr. Frosty. Quite pleased that I never got a Mr. Frosty because apparently they're not brilliant, but the Scalextric was always something I was quite jealous of from my friends. So this particular Scalextric comes from Neil. He didn't bring it into Repair Cafe. He came into Repair Cafe and just had a chat with us and said, is it something that we could look at? Got chatting with him and I told him about my YouTube channel, and so he brought it round. So I've never had one before. I don't know how they work. He's just said it's broken. He'd like to get it up and running so he can play Scalextric with his kids and sort of show off. So I'm very jealous, very excited, but also quite curious as to what may or may not be wrong with this Scalextric. So here goes. He said it's not working. Didn't say what was not working. So my first thought will probably be it'll just be a power issue. I have opened the box once, but I haven't tried to rig it up and do anything with it at the moment because I've no idea what I'm doing. There's a couple of cars. You can see they've got these sort of contact points underneath and a motor. So I'm guessing it's as straightforward as something supplies voltage into the track. You have these sort of, I'm guessing, some form of variable power supply or variable resistors in these things, which drives more voltage through the cars, and they go and or don't go. So right, let's put the cars down. Then we've got these things, which from playing at my friends, I always used to keep my finger pressed right down on trigger and never let go, and my cars would always go flying off the track. But you get addicted to speed, don't you? All this through. Some stickers, what looks like might be part of a grandstand, and bits of cardboard and instructions for the cars. So let's put this box to one side. Let's take a look at this. Right, let me zoom this in a little bit closer. So, right, hang on and see if I can figure it out before I go ahead and do any testing. Let's just move the cars out of the way, go and park them over there. Yeah, so this is definitely an iconic toy of my childhood. I don't think things are as exciting nowadays. I think it's just kind of too well expected for things to be technologically brilliant, but Scalextric, what more could you want? So let's have a look what we've got. Power pack, output 13.5 volts, 13.5 to 15 volts. Right, how does this work? Okay. So there are two controllers and there are two what look like, what I'm going to assume are connectors that go onto the track. I think I'm almost there, untangling. So one goes off to that side, this one's over here. Okay, right, let me just get my multimeter out and just test to see if anything comes out of this transformer. So just pop that there. Put that onto voltage DC. So you'll see, typically on most multimeters, there'll be 2 volt signals. One will have a wavy line, which is alternating current, which is what you normally get on your mains, and DC, which is direct current, where you get the sort of positive and negative, which is what we have here. So just going to turn it on and see what happens. Okay, so right, we've got power coming out of it, 16 volts. I'm going to guess that this is just constant, and somehow, let's try this controller. How do I can get onto the pins at the back? So nothing, pull the controller, nothing's coming out of that. I'm going to assume that should do something. It's a little bit loose on there, so let's see if I can tighten these up. Try it again. Nothing. Right, let's try the other one. Nothing from that one either. That was curious. You'd have thought one might work and the other one might not. Looking at this, so we've got a wire that comes off the transformer onto the connector, which I assume is for the track. Then the wire comes up onto the controller, then the controller back into the transformer on the other side. So let's just turn this off for a moment. Let's try some continuity tests. So continuity test will just be proving that we've got a circuit between some cables. One on there, yep, that works. I need to open this up to check for continuity between the ends of the terminals here and the transformer and what it connects to. Strange that both are not working, but it may be as simple as one gave up the ghost at one point and then it got played with just on one side of the track for a while, and then that one gave up the ghost. Okay, now worryingly there are, see, plastic tabs on there, and plastic over time does get brittle, so it's quite warm today, so hopefully nothing goes wrong. I'll get a pick and see if I can get into these without breaking the plastic. Are there any other bits on there? Can I see the black wire anywhere? Looks like it goes to that solder point there. So let's see if I can connect. Yeah, keep this still. Try to keep it still. So maybe it's the white one. It's a bit fiddly, isn't it? Right, we don't seem to have a connection between the white wire. So maybe there's a break in the white wire somewhere. I mean, that doesn't look very healthy. In fact, I think I can see the break. I've got to get my little clip-on specs for this. Turned 50 not too long ago, 2 weeks ago in fact. Yeah, that white wire is broken. So let me see if I can show that to you. Bring the close-up cam in and switch across to it. May not get a very clear picture, but yeah, the wire has gone there. So hopefully straightforward fix. What we would need to do is, let me just come back to here. You laugh at me with my specs on now. So you've got a long piece of wire, it's got a break up here. So it'll just be a case of opening this up and re-terminating these wires. So they may be a couple of inches shorter, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. So I need to get into this device and find a little bit fine, all sorts of things. Got quite a few sort of dental picks, they're quite useful. Right, so I really don't want to break this. I'm going to try a scalpel, because if I can leave it one bit up and one bit down, then I'll break my scalpel off and break. Hopefully the overall stress on the plastic will be reduced. Right, that is going down. Is this glued as well? I think this is glued at the top. So this has got everything. It's got screws, it's got clips. Get a scalpel through there, get through some of this glue. Oh well, they don't want you to open these things, do they? It's taking that clip out, which is a bit annoying. Oh well. Right, okay, interesting. Actually, not the most advanced design in the world. Yeah, quite a common thing really, you know, where electronics, looking on this one, it's the same, where electronics go into a entry point and the cables move back and forth, eventually, you know, you get metal fatigue and cables snap internally. This one's actually snapped through the plastic as well, so I'm just going to have to trim this off. So I think what I'll do is I'll quietly crack on, so I'll trim this off, shorten the, so you see how these are now, so we're going to lose what, 3 inches. But before I do that, I will just do a continuity test so you know that I'm not going mad. Just undo this knot to get some more wire strippers. So before the red was working, yep, beep, and then let's just test the white. See if we get the right one. Yeah, so that's beeping as well. Okay, I'm just going to crack on then quietly, get this resoldered to the points that are inside this, and then hopefully prove and or disprove the theory. I'll do this one as well. Okay, so I'll just talk through what I've done. I've trimmed the wires, I have tinned the wires, so what that means is you put a little bit of flux onto the ends of the wires, add a little bit of solder, so I'm not actually soldering them to anything at the minute. But if you do that on both ends, it means when you come to join the wires together, it's so much easier because they've already got a bit of solder on there and they're quite happy to join. Now, I'll add some heat shrink tubing because we don't want these to make contact when they are together. And I've chosen, rather than trying to take out lots of the wire, I've just taken out the bad section. So we probably only lost, what, an inch, better than what I was planning to do originally. So I'll just get these soldered on, join the two pieces together, bring up the heat shrink is just plastic tubing that shrinks with heat. I'll bring that over, get my hot air, and that will protect it. So I'll just crack on. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just do another test, put it onto voltage, just see if we're getting anything out of these connectors. Yeah, look at that. Can you see? Okay, so I turn that the right way around for you, I think. So nothing, and as I press the trigger, gosh, it jumps to 16 quite quick. Right, we'll look at that in a minute. Let's do the second one. Let's see if we get a similar result. Turn that off for now. So let's get this apart and re-terminate these wires. Okay, so looking at this, the contact is there. I think maybe I've got that the other way around in this one. Is that right? No, I haven't. It's in exactly the same orientation. I wonder why. Let's have a look at this shot. Again, we've got the brake there. Assuming this little clip is meant to hold on the trigger. I think that's been worn away over time. Let's just take the tension off. That wasn't doing the work. Let me see if I can do this a bit closer so you can see exactly what I'm doing. The cable here is completely, there's no resistance to me moving it, so I reckon it's broken on the inside. So if I just cut it there, get my cable strippers and on the other side. So what we want to be able to do is slip on the heat shrink leaving. This will just insulate the connections after it's been soldered, pushed on. And I'll show you what I mean by tinning the wires. It could be a bit fiddly. Hang on, let me take those glasses off. So a bit of flux on each end, doesn't have to be loads. Get my solder, clean my soldering iron, get some solder onto my iron. You see there's a little blob of solder on there, and then just tap it onto the end of the wire. Although you don't want loads of solder on, just want just enough to tin the wires. The soldering iron for clean. Again, get a blob of solder onto the iron. There we go. And do that with the other ones. Both ends of the wires tinned. Get the solder out of the way a little bit. I've got this handy little clamp for connecting wires, which means just makes it that little bit easier. Now, annoying on this side, it's been replaced with 2 grey wires, whereas the other controller had easily colour matched wires, which made life so much easier. And they're going to have to work which one goes where. So connector to follow it all the way up. Should have thought about this when I was doing it before. Right, so it's the one that's got the black heat shrink. Needs to go to the component. A bit more solder. Sorry, flux. Solder onto the soldering iron. Okay, nice connection. If I push this over, not sure if you'll see it on the video, but certainly let me get my hot air gun. And it's just a case of rinse and repeat on this side. Reassemble. We can do some testing. We just push the heat shrink back over the connection. Make sure both ends are covered. Hot air. You might see it shrink better with the red. Something's not right. Right, okay, so there is a wire that is trapped in a screw hole. If I'd forced that, I'd end up breaking that wire as well. So I got it out of the way. Okay, making some better noises now. Let's give this a test. Turned on. So there's the connector for this one. Okay, so I know what a working Scalextric should do, but this has gone together the same way as the other one. I just assumed that when it was down at this end, it would have lower voltage. It just jumps up all of a sudden. Right, so I think that's that fixed. I'm just going to pump 16 volts around. So are these 16 volt motors? Has it got anything written on them? I don't want to just try a bit of research. This one seems to have a gear problem of some sort, slipping back and forth. So there's nothing on the cars that say what the voltages are for the cars. I would like to test them, but maybe what I'll do, rather than me pumping voltage in that I don't know is exactly right voltage, I will stop where I am, get the track set up, and we can have a look to see if I can play Scalextric. Get some of the hairs out of this axle. You don't want your racing car to have hairs around the axle, do you? There we go. Lovely. Okay, right, let's give it a test. Good news, the track is working, the controllers work, although one of them's a little bit sticky, so I might have another look at that shortly. This car kind of works, this car doesn't work whatsoever. I'm going to show you the underneath of these cars, so let me just bring in the closer cam. So this car, there's one challenge with this car in the fact that the wheels are relatively hard. They're made of rubber, they should be grippy, a bit soft, but over time rubber degrades, the oils kind of degrade out there, evaporate out of there, and then what's left is a bit of a hard shiny residue. I have tried sanding the wheels, and the way that you do that, I had a little video with the Mini, so I'll be able to show you that later. But you hold it on the track, you have a piece of sandpaper underneath, and you just spin the wheels on the sandpaper. That did improve it a lot. It got a lot further around the track, but still, it got to the bend, and it wasn't very happy. Now, one thing that this car also has an issue with, apart from the sort of frictionless tyres, I mean, they've got a bit of friction, but can you see the contact braids? Much better, much longer. These look almost brand new, but for some reason, this car's not running at all. So I think for this one, it may need set of new wheels, tyres even. Similar situation, the braids are almost not there at all, so it got so far, but as soon as it got to a corner, I think the braids were losing contact with the track. There wasn't any traction on the rear axle back here, but it just wasn't clicked in properly. And again, the wheels, they are not exactly grippy. There's not a lot to them. So I think on these again, and the braids need replacing, maybe a little bit of a clean up maybe. Hopefully that will bring those two cars back to life. And this car, nothing, doing nothing whatsoever. So I'm not sure which wire that goes to. Let's just hold that on there. Okay, so nothing's getting through there, nothing's there either. And the braids do conduct, so that's interesting, isn't it? Let's just try and hold that on to the contact point itself. Nothing on the other side, nothing. Right, okay, well, maybe this is a simple fix. So does this pull out? Right, yep, that pulls out. Oh, look at that. They just fell out. That pull out as well. A nail underneath there. Okay, so just held in with some sort of pins. Have these just had the wires pushed in without taking the insulation off? Is it as simple as that? Let's just try. So that's definitely there. Nothing interesting. Okay, I mean, he's been crimped down, so I can't see why they could end up not working properly. Let me just try the other one. Again, nothing. Right, interesting. What's that back there? White tack, I think. Who knows? Right, okay, let's see if we can have a closer look at these. So I'm going to switch over to my microscope. So where shall I go? Let's go there. Bring over the microscope and see what we can see. It's going to be a bit cumbersome sometimes. Okay, let's switch the microscope camera. Just get this all set up with SKUF. Okay, so it does look like the wire is in contact with the pin. Just have a look on the other side. Yeah, in the wire. See, this is a bit fiddly because everything's on a slightly different plane. Nothing looks damaged. Check the white wire. I don't see any obvious. It's bent, yes, but not the point where I'd have thought there'd be a broken connection in between the wire. Unless that feels a little bit loose. Could it be broken up yet? Look. What might have happened is as that goes round the corners time and time and time again, it may have broken off the connection between the pin and the wire. I think what I'm going to try to do is, yeah, again, that feels really loose. So can I take this right out? Let's see if we can get these pins off. And they've been crimped as well as soldered, I think. And see if I can uncrimp them. So it's not, I've kind of uncrimped and gone completely opposite, gone too far. Look, hidden away. Very interesting, isn't it? So I think this pin, when it goes into the plastic, is what holds the braid in as well. That one might be okay. See if we can get this one off. Try to do it in stages. Little. That's interesting. I think the focus was off on the actual camera, so even though I was in focus, camera looking down my microscope was a little bit off. So sorry about that. Has that gone too far? Yeah, look, that one's even more telling. If you see here, can we actually get? Can we see a break? Let me see that writing, so it should be a visible break, I don't know. It's not visible, but it's definitely floppy that is. You can kind of see that the... Okay, so let's trim these off, get the pins back on. Hope that we have enough wire left on the length of this. I'm trying my best to not take too much off. The tension up a little bit because I think that's quite soft, insulating that out so you can see way too little, just about right. I don't have any specific crimping tools, just have to do a pair of pliers like that. Let's bring this one in so you can see what I'm doing better. There we go, continuity. Continuity, good, good, good. Right, so how does this braid goes in that way? Let's just flatten this to get that back in. This is a right old fiddle, and then it just works. Just going to fold that over down a bit. It's a bit frustrating, I've just pulled the track away. Now this braid is very much like the stuff that you use to take up soldering. Right, question is which pin goes where? Didn't make a note of that. That was a mistake. So am I going to end up with a car that's in reverse? Can I get these parts out to make this a bit easier? It comes out and I think these just pop off. Give me a little bit more space to manoeuvre. Come on. So I had two possible ways this could have gone in. Chose the one going. There it goes. Pop that by a little bit. Alright, okay. So I think the front bit here is broken as well. I think in the box there's some spares at those. Just need to get this soldered back onto the motor if I'm lucky. And because of the age it's used leaded solder, and I'll just get away with not having to do anything other than just give this a bit of a tap. Let's get some tweezers. These tweezers seem better today. Yeah, very much looks like I'm not going to be lucky. This is where I could do a three-hand. There we go. Let's just check continuity on this again. So that works. Looking at the braid, is that the same as what I've got here? So solder braid. I know this is just copper, whereas I think the stuff that's on there is tinned. It's a bit narrow, so I don't think I've got anything thicker than this. So what I'll do, I think I'm going to call it a day there for now. And I'm going to have a look at what I can do about the tyres and the holder. Sorry, the braid for the track. See if there's a spare one of these pieces as well, because that looks like it's seen better days. Are they okay on these ones? Or you can actually see the pins coming out of that, so that could do with a bit of TLC. The pins are coming out there as well. That one's in solid. So okay, I'm gonna have a look to see what I can find in my spare. Okay, it's been a couple of weeks since I filmed the previous footage. The car's were not quite working very well. So they need a little bit of love and care as well. So if I show you the state of the car, so I'll just pick the black one so you can see, because I think it's probably the worst car that's there. If you look underneath, the braids are literally either nearly non-existent or hanging on for dear life. So the braids at the front need replacing. And also, I don't know if you can see, but the tyres, that one looks all right. Yeah, this is a good example. So the tyres are perished rubber. Let me just try to get that into focus for you. See, the rubber is all perished. And when rubber perishes like that, it becomes hard and sort of slippy. So I did try to sand them down to get them down to some kind of like fresher rubber, but I think these are just gone. So what I've done is I ordered some new braid and some new tyres from a company called Pendle Slot Racing. Hold that up there. Absolutely brilliant. I emailed them, told them the part numbers of my car. They responded within an hour or two, told me which tyres I needed to order, and they were delivered within a couple of days. So really, really good service from Pendle Slot Racing. So really impressed with them. So what I'm going to do, just change the tyres, change the braid, and then we will see if that makes the cars come to life again. Okay, so that's the tyres changed. They are massively different compared to the old ones. These are almost like hard plastic. They are rubber, but because they've perished over the years, they actually feel like hard, smooth plastic, so they've got no grip at all. These are really grippy. If you put any pressure on, it's very difficult to even sort of move your finger over there. I'll put the spoiler back on in a second. And now the braids are held in, so you can take this component of the guide that keeps it in the slot on the track, pull that out, and you'll see that there are two brass contacts on the other side. And all that this is that the contacts are pushed in with the braid alongside it, so it kind of pinches the braid going into the hole and keeps it in place. So if I just get these pushed out, pop the new bits of braid in, and then we should be good to go. They came out quite easily. Gosh, look at these. That is literally only a few wires holding that together. And similarly for this one, it's all bunched up. It's definitely seen better days. So if I get some pieces of braid, just get some cutters, hold it there. I think they need to be roughly sort of an inch long, 3/4 of an inch. I'm not a slot car racing expert, but this seems to be the length that they ought to be. I suspect this is just effectively solder wick that's had some sort of treatment of solder onto it. It's been tinned with something. So which way around do these go? Right, okay, so you need to put them into these slots like this, little bit poking up, because when you push the pins through, that braid will get pushed through as well. Try and be clever and do two at the same time. Things never normally work when I try to be clever, but never know, I might get lucky today. So it's very difficult to show, but effectively this pin goes in through the other side, pushes through. If I can just get enough to hold it in place, and then I'll probably use some pliers rather than ripping the skin off my finger and thumb. Yeah, this is quite fiddly. Let's get the pliers and see if I can just use that to squeeze it in. Does that push the braid all the way out to the point where it's going to fall off? No, good. So it pushes an amount of braid through. And that's it. And then this just slots back into that hole. I was reading, apparently the best thing that you ought to do with braid is fan out the ends so that when it goes round sort of corners or hills or whatever, it's got a better chance of staying in touch with the rail that provides electricity to the car. So I won't film the other two cars because it's just the same process over again. And there we go. Okay, so braid fanned out. Let's try to do that a bit more. No idea if I'm doing this right or not. I guess you want to make sure that they don't actually bridge across each other, but you want them to be able to touch the track. So there we go. That one felt a bit loose. Right, let's do this one again. That seems to be a bit better. Yeah, that's tight. I think I'm going to try to curl these round. Okay, right. So that's that car done. I'll get the other two done, and then we can give it a go and see if they race. Cool.